Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first panel of the day. My name is Rahul, and I'm really excited to be here. Mobility is something that me and my colleagues are chasing for the last 2 years, and it got triggered 2 years back by certain changes in the environment that we thought were here to stay. 1 billion downloads in 2012 in India. Take this data with a pinch of salt, like all data. 20 million smartphones. What we were seeing was a 3x growth at least in the billion downloads, and a 250 million smartphone growth in the next 3 years. Reasons for this: sharp reduction in the prices, as we are all noticing. 38 million 3G subs already and growing. And the amount of time that Indians are spending on their smartphones, reportedly 52 minutes a day, already on its way up. So these trends is what set us off, and we've been focused on the mobility investment thesis for the last 2 years. I'm very excited to be here with a panel which shares that view with me and believes that mobility and the changes that it's going to make in our lives is here to stay, and it's going to throw up a lot of opportunities in creating some sustainable large businesses. Obviously, all opportunities come with a lot of challenges. We're going to talk about what some of those challenges are with respect to building these companies in India, because India is peculiar, both in its environment, ecosystem, and the constraints that it throws in terms of people behavior, consumption patterns, etc. So I've got a brilliant panel here. We have folks who have pivoted their VAS models to cater to what is changing in terms of the consumer-led model versus an operator-driven model for consumption of apps. We have folks here who have invested in the ecosystem that will support mobility eventually, including payments. Companies that are already seeing amazing traction coming through mobile channels like Naukri. They're seeing a lot of consumption of content happening through mobile channels. And of course, Madhu's company, BSB, which is putting probably the most significant amount of resources behind building a mobility-first company. Which has a lot of connotations, but I've seen this company closely, and I absolutely believe that they treat mobile as the first and primary channel, and everything comes later. So with that introduction, let me start off by asking a few questions to the panel. I think I want to start off by just having everybody's views out on, mobility has been around since 2000. In its prime. Of course, we started the mobile operator revolution a little earlier than that. But I wanted to ask everyone, what is different this time around? Why are we getting excited about mobility this time? What, according to them, has been the trigger, like I mentioned in my case? What has been the trigger for them to focus and work on this large trend so closely? So let's start with Hitesh, maybe, if you can start talking about what have you seen happening around mobility as far as your businesses are concerned, Hitesh?
So, one of my main jobs right now inside the company is to make people see the importance of mobile, right? Because mobile is where, maybe the internet was a few years ago. And without doing much, actually, without even realizing that, this medium had become very big, we started getting a lot of traction on the phone. So today, depending on the category, we have an investee company called like Zomato. I think they get maybe 50–60% of all their queries on the mobile phone. While and inside the company we have Naukri maybe at 15–20%, and some other sort of categories like Shiksha, the education company, education business, youngsters sort of on the phone all the time without doing anything. They don't even have an app out there, and the mobile site was built by one techie. Okay, because he wanted to do something different and he built a mobile site. It's a very basic site, and they get 30% of their queries on the phone, right? So that's the kind of traction on mobile, and that is what is making us look at mobile very seriously. And this is when the number of mobile, the mobile penetration is maybe at what? Smartphone penetration is maybe at 50, 60, 70 million smartphones, but probably growing at 70, 80, 100% year on year. So the other truth is that we are seeing a lot of users accessing our sites only from the mobile phone. So there is a category of users who use only the desktop. There are some users who use both the desktop, many of them in fact, who use both the desktop and the mobile phone, and there are some who use only the mobile phone. And this category, I think, is only going to increase with time, these numbers, because it is still very expensive to buy a PC in India, but it's but smartphones are very cheap. So if today we are at 130, 140 million internet users, give or take a few million, I think at least some of them, maybe 20 million, maybe 30 million, I don't know what the number is, are mobile-only users. And if this number goes from 140 to 300 or 400 in the next 3 or 4 years, then a large chunk of these users will be either mobile-only or mobile plus tablet-only users. So that's the harsh reality, and I think it's a great opportunity for people who sort of realize this and move early. And that's why we are putting a lot of effort behind the phone.
I'll also pose that question to Badri, because what Moj has done is actually take a well-established business model which was quite tenured and then made a pivot to cater to the changing environment. So I'll request Badri to share the reasons for that pivot.
Thanks. So Moj began life as any other VAS company. We set up as a mobile internet company to start with, and then as CRBT and the voice businesses got very big, we did what many of us others in the industry were doing. We started syndicating content. We started distributing it across other people's platforms. And honestly, these were not built upon our own products and platforms, and that was a big frustration. I think 2009, 10, around that time, we kind of figured out this was not going anywhere particularly for us. And at that time, we simply decided to shut down what was at that point of time about 60–70% of our revenues. And we moved to what was then emerging, what they called as the off-deck model on the telecom operators. It simply meant that we didn't have to rely on telecom operators to kind of distribute the apps and games that we did, but instead we only used their APIs for billing purposes. Then the products became ours, the platform became ours, the marketing became ours, the product development became ours. It's not an easy journey, in becoming a product company, despite having Shaadi.com in our group and so on and so forth. It's painful, but over time we have managed to kind of create our own market share, create our own good revenue market share across the operators. Today, the operators are doing an amazing job in supporting this ecosystem, and that's pretty amazing. So for example, Airtel and Vodafone have announced revenue shares which are hugely supportive of this ecosystem that's coming up. So they pay out about 60–70% of what the customer pays to us, which in turn is shared with the content owners. So that's amazing. All of them are put across what is called direct-to-consumer contracts and frameworks in place, where you don't have to keep chasing the operators and the circle managers and so on and so forth. So it's just one API connection and you're done. Vodafone has, as usual, led the way in partnering with Epina in creating a whole API box, which says that if you want location information and payment information and balance information and so on and so forth, you get it on an API, you send a separate agreement for it, and you get access to it. So I think operators are creating and establishing themselves as an amazing stakeholders in a group, almost countering what, let's say, Google and Apple are doing across their app stores and so on, providing alternate revenue generation mechanisms. And it's becoming an important source of monetization for content owners globally. From a consumer perspective, what we bring to the table is simply that, whether it is apps or games, sure, if you have an Android phone, you can go to, let us say, Google Play and download everything that you want. But are we able to create a proposition that's got 3 or 4 important components? One, is it packaged well? 2 is the price well. The typical pricing is 5 rupees a day or 30 rupees a week. The pricing is really, really small. Do the operators provide an API where it is 2 clicks to purchase, so you don't have to use a credit card and so on and so forth? And 4th, are we marketing it well? Are we using AdWords or SEO and so on and so forth to market it well? So we are able to put together these traditional elements of any digital business and supported by a huge stakeholder group called operators and actually start creating sustainable business. This business is still very new. It's only about a couple of years old, but the traction is good. We are all seeing high double-digit growth year on year. Profitability is slowly kicking in even in this as well. I think this could become interesting alternative to content kind of discovery mechanism and so on. So in Moj, we focus on apps, games, and videos, and that is all that we do. In parallel, we invested in an app store called Mobango. It's really a sandbox of where we learn things, and we make our mistakes, and whatever works on Mobango, we put it on Moj products as well. So that's the traction we're going in. It's a massive, it's a new market, but I believe it's heading in a great direction. So.
Great, thanks Badri. Madhu, I think out of everyone, including the VCs on this panel, you guys have put more money where your mouth is. And you've done it with a partner who's a Maverick mobile company, which has built a massive business in probably the mobile first country of the world. Can you share some of your primary reasons for putting so much out to build what is a mobile first business?
Sure. I have been part of the cusp of mobile, internet, and operators for the last several years, for the last 12, 13 years. I've been at Sprint, I've been at Nextel, I've been at Verizon Wireless, and all of them have had a big impact on how mobile and internet can actually change the world. And I'm also there when Sprint launched 4G first. Many of my beliefs in the power of mobile have been sort of tempered by those experiences. And in the last 3 years, we've been working very closely with mobile stalwarts and internet stalwarts like SoftBank and Yahoo Japan. The tremendous traction, and I've had the opportunity to work with many, many marquee mobile-only companies, both in the US and Japan, and of course some of the companies in India, including the Info Edge Group, which I have a lot of respect for. The key takeaway and the key belief and conviction that I have is that, and I having seen the world in the US and Japan, is that things will change. Things will change in India as well. We've been talking about multiple statistics where the mobile growth and smartphone growth and the operator initiatives to drive the adoption, all of them play a big part, and that's coming. The approach that BSB is taking is that scale in mobile is coming, and we need to build services for that scale. We will be very, very consumer and service centric. Historically, web has been the primary channel for those services. With the scale that's coming, we believe that mobile will be the dominant channel. I mean, internet will be there on the PC, but mobile will be the biggest one. And it needs a certain degree of appetite to really take that punt and say, I will be a mobile-only company. And it's only with the backing of very large, powerful companies like Bharti and SoftBank that we can very confidently say that, yes, we will focus on consumers, we will focus on services. Because, as we all know, monetization is difficult, monetization is slow. But somebody has to go out there and build those services that are really important for the consumer adoption. That's a journey that we have started. It's been a few months now, and I think we are seeing a lot of traction, and we will continue that. And there is a solid backing from our investors and promoters that, yes, please go ahead. Please focus on the product. Please focus on the services. Please focus on the consumer. And that's the journey I think we will continue to do.
Great. Thanks, Madhu. Mohit, you've led Sequoia strategy. You've come from the, let's call it the traditional operator world for now. And, like we know, VCs would invest for the next 5 to 7 years. So you have to be more forward-looking than most of us around here. So can you share what are you thinking of as far as investing in mobility is concerned, and what kind of investments have you made so far?
Great. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I guess I want to make 2 points. The first one is we should not think of ourselves as constrained by the India market. I think if you ask me, the real opportunity that's happened with Android and the smartphone revolution is that every Indian entrepreneur is now a global entrepreneur. And 5 years back when we used to be at Bharti, there used to be a queue of guys wanting to launch their services on a telco, and there used to be this inevitable arm wrestling around revenue shares, and then there used to be this inevitable pushback about how the carriers are blocking innovation because they're not giving enough rev share, or the payment cycles are really horrible. Well, all those excuses are actually out of the window, because with an app store, any innovative startup anywhere in the world can actually now launch, and as long as the product works and it goes viral because of customers liking it, you frankly have the entire world to go look after. And that, to me, is the biggest sort of positive thing for any entrepreneur in the mobile space right now. He should basically create products that meet customers' needs. He should have network effects in that product so that it actually goes global and goes fast. I think that's the best way to scale. So that's what excites me. That's what we look for when we're looking to fund mobile startups at Sequoia. The second thing I would say is, from an India-centric market, don't get discouraged about things being still young in India. For example, advertising on the mobile is still young. It just is. I think you need to be able to stay patient, but also be aware of there's a right time for you to do everything in the right market. So for example, 10 to 12 years back was the right time to launch a mobile operator, and clearly all the operators have scaled up nicely. Then there were all the tower companies that grew up on the back of the rollout of infrastructure. Then the handset companies have sort of grown and grown very fast. And tomorrow there will be a time to sort of launch some mobile advertising or mobile payment. So I think it's important for an entrepreneur to be able to see around the bend and to sort of match his aspirations where the market is, because you can only do that much to drive a market's growth. But it's up to you as an entrepreneur to navigate your startup into where the market growth is today. And don't kid yourself, there is market growth today, it's just happening in different aspects. So for example, right now, we sit on the board of Micromax. That company has gone from a full feature phone market to more than half its revenues coming from smartphones, and is growing like a weed. That's what Indians are paying for today on the smartphone evolution. They haven't really got yet to paying for expensive premium applications, and the advertisers haven't yet come there. But that too will come.
Great. Thanks, Mohit. Let's move to what the topic is about, which is how to build sustainable mobility businesses. Amongst the panel, we chatted about what are the 3-4 pillars essentially needed for, and that's true for any sustainable businesses: team, the product, and the business model. So with respect to mobility, let me pose this question on what are, again, there is a lot of hesitation in actually putting things out because, so far we have not seen a large sustainable mobility business in the country. So take this with a view that this is more forward-looking. These are thoughts that we are putting through. It's not like any of us have had the experience of building one, but we are trying to draw out from learnings from other businesses that have got built. So from these 3 aspects, let me actually put the team question to Hitesh first, which is, Hitesh, what do you think are the essential characteristics of a mobile team? How is it different from an internet business, if at all? What would you look for? Is it hard to find? Is it easily available? Some of the characteristics you've seen.
You see, whenever something new starts, people are hard to find. So, 10, 12, 14 years ago, web developers were hard to find. SEO people who understood SEO were hard to find till a few years ago. People who understood SEM were hard to find till 2004, 2005, and so on and so forth. So whenever there's something new, it takes time for the talent pipeline to get built. I think the good thing is that unlike 10 or 12 years ago, see, 10, 12 years ago, people said internet, hoga, nahi hoga, who knows, it's very small, funding dried up. There was a boom for about 6 months or 1 year, and then there was no funding for many years. So not many people got funded. The ecosystem took time to get built. But people have seen what happened last time. People know that consumers moved from offline media to online media. People know that this is invariably going to happen this time as well, right? So it's going to happen. It's probably going to happen faster because already 800 million people own phones, or 900 million people own phones, and they're all going to move to smartphones. So already people are making investments. And when I say people, I mean even talent. Even developers know it's going to happen, right? So they're already trying to learn, more about Android, more about iOS, more about some of the stuff which works on mobile phones. Designers know that the next big thing is going to be mobile, right? So inside our company, for example, we have a lot of people telling us, people who work in our current teams, yeah, I want to do something with a mobile phone. I gave you this example of a techie who built a Shiksha mobile site on his own. He wanted to do something, he wanted to learn about the phone. So we have people inside the company who know that this is going to be the next big thing, and they want to, sort of test out waters, do stuff. And I'm sure there are lakhs and lakhs of people outside, hundreds and thousands, because we graduate so many engineers every year, who are sort of now, who use the mobile phone all the time, and who are learning how to program and how to do stuff on the phone. So I don't think, so while there is a shortage today, and it's very hard to find this talent, but I think it's just a matter of time.
Hitesh, can you also narrow it down to what is the essential team constituent that you see? What are the 2-3 strengths that you need in a team to build, let's say, a consumer app? We can also talk about enterprise mobile apps and different areas, but if we just restrict it to consumer app, which is the most popular theme, what do you think are the 3 key strengths?
So, see, in a consumer business, the number one thing which counts is consumer. So first and foremost, what is required is an understanding of the consumer. Now that may not necessarily, a tech person may not necessarily have that, but it's an essential part. Somebody in the team has to have that understanding on, what are consumers doing on the phone? How do they use the phone? Number one, in my view. Number two, I think people need to understand the gadget. So you need to understand what is unique about the phone, what is possible on the phone, which is not possible on the desktop, stuff like that. You know, what is, and this applies to any platform. So there are tons of people out there trying to do stuff on social, but they don't really understand, you know, how to build stuff for social. You know, how should this integrate with Facebook? What does Facebook offer which is different from other platforms? Similarly here, how is iOS different from Android, let's say, for example. I'm not a techie, so I can't tell you the details, but what is unique about this device, this platform, is somebody has to appreciate and understand that.
Yeah.
Right? Of course, you know, and then, you know, for our kind of companies, we have to look at the service we offer. You know, and then see what is it, so if our customers are moving to some other device, what is it that we should offer to them on that device? How is the use case different? What should the workflows be like? So some of these aspects also become important. Monetization is not something that we are looking at this point in time, but I'm sure people who are building mobile-only businesses need to think through the business models as well. So they need somebody who understands the marketplace and the monetization aspect as well. You know, how will the money ultimately come?
I'd like to come in on this one a little bit. The thing is, product management is an expertise and a competence that doesn't exist in enough volumes in our country. And so as we're sort of looking for mobile startups to partner with, I think it's really important to understand that it's not just the simple, beautiful layer of UI, UX, which sometimes people think is all that's needed in order to create a nice application that gets adoption. But I think it's this element of truly understanding what he was saying, which is why do you even exist as a company? Why do you even exist as a product? And making sure that you don't do too many things too early in your application. Too often we find guys who say, I want to be the this of India. I want to be, you know, that of India. And I'm actually the Google plus the LinkedIn plus the so and so forth. The reality is on this limited sort of mobile screen, you just need to stand for one thing and one thing only, which is really, really important to a certain segment of your customer base. And if you do that one thing really well, they will tell their friends and the rest will grow. And I would say that focus, that singularity of purpose is something that only a product manager really brings to the party.
Sure. Mohit, I was anyways coming to you since you said that don't think of your platform to be just an India audience platform. Think of yourself as a global company. And mobile allows you that, and you know, as again, we're both VC, so we both may be smoking the same stuff.
Don't say the next word.
But you know, we also believe in the fact that you know, ecosystems are a lot more homogeneous now. It's the same device, it's the same version that we are building on top of. Infrastructure to build products on is as cheap to a US developer as it is to an Indian developer. The cost of building a minimum valuable product in India is very similar to what it is in the US. And talents are also very similar. So coming back to Mohit's point, Mohit, what do you think is, what would Sequoia or what would you look at in a mobile team which will give you comfort that it is a globally competitive team?
I think product management for sure, because eventually in a mobile application company, unless you have adoption, frankly, you know, you don't have a game to play. So clearly somebody who understands, you know, what the customer need is, builds a product that's pretty, but also sort of targeted to exactly that need. The biggest challenge now, it was very easy to be funding a set of mobile app startups 5 years back, but today with the deluge of applications that, you know, people like Mobango and others are sort of putting out in the market, it's absolutely impossible for you to spend enough money to get discovered on those app stores. So I would say, you know, what's become important for us now is someone who understands not just the consumer insight, but actually builds interesting distribution features into his product so that he actually can go viral via network effects. And that, I think, has become critical because distribution of application is table stakes. And only once you've got your application distributed, then you can drive engagement and monetization from there on.
Before we move on to the other two topics of product and business model, you know, the US team has started coming up with a new title or a position, and it's called the growth hacker, which essentially means that growth is getting driven through product engineering and not through marketing. And that's something I also come across, you know, with a lot of Indian startups which don't recognize that role of the growth hacker. So since it is so important for early stage mobile startups, I would like to put it out to the panel for some comments on what do they think of this role. Are they seeing this possible in India? Is this role even something that people are aware of? So I just wanted to throw it out to anybody who would like to comment.
Let me go first. Going back to the team question, I think initially we struggled a lot. Again, when we started with mobile first kind of a view, getting the product right is very, very critical, as Mohit pointed out. And we looked around, and eventually we had to retain a search firm in the Valley. And then our first couple of employees actually came from California. And again, from a leadership perspective, it's really important to set the tone for the rest of the team. And that's where we started. And then eventually, you know, we actually grew some people internally, and then we found good people in the Indian market as well. And then going to your current question, it is absolutely critical, and we embrace that very, very heartily, that, you know, engineering teams and product teams are fundamental agents for your application service growth. And you can call it any name. Actually, growth hacker is a current flavor of the words, but then it's true. In its essence, it is changing in the sense that engineering is now front and center for everything. And at BSB, again, we consider that engineering and product being the centerpieces for our business growth. Distribution, go-to-market, all that stuff is very important, but then product comes first.
Yeah, and there is an update to that, by the way. So it's not the most recent. The most recent is growth scientist. So that's a new title. So what you do with all the data that the hacker is generating, you need a scientist view to actually evaluate. So there's one slight.
There is an open rec at BSB right now, so anyone who's interested.
So let's move on, actually, since you've talked about product. And Madhu, let's stay with you. You know, I met some of your colleagues, and all I heard at your office was product focus, and that is primary. And you know, the next thing is a combination of, you know, I'm calling it product, but it's a combination of design, UI, UX, that whole peculiarity again of why a native mobile app is something that once you throw it out, you have very little. It's not a Google engineering concept, which is keep improving every day, but you got to think of, you know, what is most likely to stick, build that, and don't have too many second chances to go fix it. So the initial emphasis on the product design is extremely high. So, and again, let's start with Madhu, but let's open it out. But since I've heard it from some of your team members, can you comment on how are you emphasizing on the product?
Again, as Hitesh pointed out, the consumer requirement comes first. And the need in India is maybe different from the US and Japan and so on and so forth. So obviously we can't just, you know, copy and paste or even emulate blindly, right? It has to be a very fundamental consumer thinking first, and then we layer on the UI and the technology and so on and so forth to support the user experience. If you think of a, let's say, a specific technology, the intent of using the technology must be really, can it be faster, better, cheaper to build that product? In terms of the first chance or second chance, I mean, I think the fundamental belief is that you build a version, MVP, a minimum viable product, and put it out there. And your consumers are the best advisors for your future growth. And we have a weekly sprint cycle, and then we actually sort of release very, very, very rapidly. I think the fundamental focus is that, again, I think there is no silver bullet. You need to keep trying things, and the growth hacking team at BSB keeps coming up with ideas, and the engineering team implements it, and we put it out there. And the fundamental approach that we are taking is, you know, we're not emotional about a specific feature by ourselves. You know, if it doesn't work, we are completely open to sort of redesign the entire thing. And if you see some of the products, then you'll see the design changes coming often. Again, mobile is a very difficult platform to build for, not only for the applications, but also things on the browser. And as we all know, the feature phone market is still very, very large. And there are 10,000 different SKUs out there. So we have 6 or 7 different templates that we build a product to, and each of the templates has to be really different and customized. And so it's a mixture of multiple things that you need to manage with the eventual goal that are we seeing engagement? I mean, that's the fundamental KPI. Is the churn, monthly active users, daily active users, those are the mantras, and we watch them very carefully every day, and that becomes the guiding principle for everything else.
Got it. Thanks, Madhu. Mohit, can you relate some examples from your teams on you know, the companies that you funded? How have they, you know, managed to marry the design principles with the engineering backend? So how do they put these two things together to build a great product?
Sure. Let me take an example of someone that I think most people here would be familiar with, WhatsApp. But I thought when WhatsApp first came out, it was a pretty, it was an okay product, not a great product. But I think the thing that made it work and made it succeed is it sort of did something simple, like it sucked out all your contact book and automatically told you who else was on WhatsApp. And just that one feature developed by engineering allowed that product to get widespread adoption, right? So that's a good example of saying it's not always about 15 functionalities or great UI, but it's being able to understand that you're trying to meet somebody's need and making it really simple for others to get onto the bandwagon. So that's a good example.
Great, thanks, Mike. So next topic is the business model, and to separate it out from opportunity. So business model, at least for this part, would be, how do you make money, who's going to pay you, who's your paying customer, and freemium, in-app purchases, things like that, or ad-driven. So bottom line being, how do you make money from all of this effort? So I'll throw it out to Hitesh, actually, because of their closeness to monetization in their current business. Hitesh, are there any early thoughts, or between writing it out free for a long time and then thinking about it versus being ad dependent in a very limited pie market like India? Again, if you wear your forward-looking hat, where do you see monetization coming from?
So, for our business, let's take one example. Let's take Naukri. We monetize job listings. Now for us, if we get more traffic on the mobile phone, we don't necessarily have to monetize on the phone separately. We are generating more response for our users, right? So as long as our users are getting more responses, and that's what they pay us for, they're happy to pay us more. So we don't have to have a specific business model in the case of job listings, for example. On the other hand, if you're charging for banner ads, that's a different case, because, if you're not able to show banner ads on Google, if you don't have those big sort of things on Google, or on the phone, we have a problem, right? So I think it depends on what you're trying to do on the phone. Our initial objective is to ensure that our customers don't have a bad experience and they come back to our site on the phone, that we are able to acquire new customers on the phone cheap. We are not so much worried about monetization because, like I said, let's take even 99 acres. If you're able to generate more responses to a real estate listing, people don't mind paying us more money because we are charging for response. But there are certain cases, like I mentioned, where if you're charging for display advertising, you have an issue, you have to start thinking about it from day one. If you're a mobile-only company, you have to start thinking about it from day one because that's the only sort of way of making revenue. My personal belief is that for businesses to succeed on the mobile phone, for startups to succeed on the mobile phone, and for these mobile-only type of companies, they should initially try to solve a problem which can only be solved through the phone, right? Which is not possible to solve otherwise. Because if they do that, they have a unique product, and then it is easy to monetize that offering. If they try to do a meet to, they say, okay, we'll try and give you a better job search on the mobile phone, they'll find it very hard to monetize it. Mm-hmm. So that's as far as startups are concerned. But for companies like ours, which are more sort of, which monetize responses, the more the better. And therefore, we sort of look at it as mobile as a channel to generate more response, to acquire customers cheap, to acquire users cheap. And it's great for us, therefore.
Great. Thanks, Hitesh. Badri, you guys have been monetizing from mobile content for a few years now, both in the both in the operator-led world and now in the consumer-led world. And you talked also about how operators support the new payment ecosystems, etc. Can you share what have you seen changing, and in the current Moj version, what is getting driven?
Sure. I'll also take on from where Hitesh left. Actually, on the monetization, what we see across the group, whether it is Shaadi or whether it is Moj. Shaadi was a great example for us. It's when we launched our iOS app initially, we saw the revenues go from 0 to 20 lakhs in like 2 months. It was incredible. We just didn't expect, will we get so much as well. Sure, after a point, now we're figuring out how to scale it up and so on and so forth. So the other point I want to say was, when we, even on mobile business models that we see here, one of the things that's happening in India, I believe, is that when you launch a new product out there, initially we are able to quickly scale up to about 15, 20, 25 million uniques a month. Beyond that, right now in India, you kind of start struggling to scale beyond that in a meaningful manner, where the ROIs are still there and so on. But I think globally, for example, I think Snapchat is a terrific example. they moved from 0 to 200 million daily photo uploads in about 4 months. So it looks like an average business in global is able to kind of reach up to 50, 60, 70 million uniques quite quickly as compared to what we are able to do at about 10, 15, 20 million uniques for a typical kind of a business. Obviously, there are businesses which are far bigger in India. WhatsApp is probably way bigger, and some of the social networks are way bigger. Absolutely, I'm sure Hike is way bigger than these numbers are. But that is one. So how big so from a business model perspective, how big is an audience can you go after, and at what levels can you generate ROIs from there? So that's the level that we are in. Second, across Shaadi or Moj, we are largely on a subscription basis, we're not on ad basis. So on Shaadi, people, again, they either use iOS to pay, or as Hitesh rightly said, they engage with Shaadi. Once you pay on the web, you come and express interest with each other and we drive incredible engagement. And today, our metrics are something like 20% of all express interests are happening through mobile for us. So that is a very good metric for us, and we think if we move that metric to 30-40% by the end of the year, the next year Shaadi could resemble more of a mobile company than even a desktop-based company. And I think that's inherently kind of what we're looking forward to. So across the group, there are 3 things we look at mobile as just as principles. One, we say that can we look at mobile to reach a new segment and audience not available anywhere else. So what that means is, so no matter how big Shaadi is or Jeevan Sathi from Hitesh's group is or so on, we probably have about 1.5, 2 million active profiles, and that's about it. It's still very small. But out there are over 30 million Android phones out there. So can we create a proposition that is suitable for 30 million Android people out there? What should that proposition look like? Is it even possible to deliver something to them? So we look at mobile as can we reach out to new audience segments that we're not able to reach out through desktop. So that is one. The second thing is, Hitesh has covered it very well, which is about engagement. How can we drive higher engagement through mobile, which is always on and so on and so forth, that people don't have time to log into desktop and so on, and then can we kind of use mobile as a way of extending it. And third, what Moj does is simply saying that mobile offers certain unique ecosystem players and opportunities, and can we go out there and monetize it? So which is what, and in that space, let us say mobile entertainment has been the most viable segment so far. Anything beyond that has been very limited. You don't really see products on M-education much. You don't see much products on M-health now. You see some startups in the space. But those are the 3 ways we kind of tend to look at mobile. One is about reaching new segments. Second is about extending engagement for existing customers, or simply taking use of the existing unique opportunities in monetizing on mobile, which is not there yet on, let us say, desktop and so on. So,
great, thank you so much. Love to be here. I think we are at the cusp of a big one, and a lot of opportunities to create, many sustainable large businesses. And I think I hope the panel's excitement and their experiences have been able to convey our excitement as well. So thanks a lot for being the audience.
Thank you.